Good morning, everybody. I'm Tim Prolgerve. This is our earnings call for Q2 2026 of Siemens Energy. Like most of you know, we have slightly adjusted to the format of our earnings calls. There's not going to be a dedicated presentation by the members of the executive board when we get started with our Q&A. CEO Christian Bruch will be answering your questions, and since these are also half-year numbers, Maria Ferrara, our CFO, is here as well, and she's happy to take your questions as well. On the 23rd of April, we've published our preliminary figures this morning at 7 o'clock. There were no surprises, in other words. So here are the numbers. Siemens Energy has followed up with a good second quarter despite the geopolitical tensions. So we had record orders of 17.7 billion orders, achieved improvements with all main indicators. The order intake was driven by data centers. We're talking about 154 billion euros of orders, which is another 8 billion more than in the past year. 1.164 profit posted before special items, and net income was at 835 million euros. The free cash flow, and this is what Maria, our CFO, is really happy about, is almost 2 billion euros. So what I'm saying is this has been a strong second half year for Siemens Energy. On the 23rd of April, we've increased our outlook. We now expect 14 to 16% of comparable revenue growth, a profit margin before special items 10 to 12%, and a free cash flow of about 8 billion euros. Now, this is what we want to talk with you about. If you have questions for our CEO, Christian Bruch, or CFO, Maria Ferrara, on the numbers, or any other questions, really, please make use of your telephone line. Journalists have received the number. Before, if you want to ask a question, hit star and 1 on your keypad. Now, as always, this call is shown on 2 or transmitted on 2 webcasts, 1 in the original line and 1 with an English version translated by our interpreters. But you can also ask written questions in the chat window. Now, let me also point out once again, only journalists will ask questions now. Analysts can do that later in the analyst call, and employees can do that also in their town hall meetings. Shareholders cannot ask questions because we often see questions in the chat window on the share price development, etc. We cannot answer those. Now, obviously, we want to ensure that there's no feedback and ask you to mute your line, and there's also a safe harbor statement on forward-looking statements that you also see now on the webcast. Now, with that, let's get started with our Q&A. Now, Mr. Bruch, before we take the first question from the journalists, I would ask you one very brief one. The Middle East conflict is increasing now in terms of tensions, and Siemens Energy has a footprint in the region of about 4,000 employees that I'm sure have had a difficult time. Now, you did something that your colleagues on site have really appreciated. You traveled to the region to have a look at the situation with your own eyes. So, first question, why did you do that? And what can you report from your trip? What was your impression that you've had? Well, thank you very much, and good morning, everybody. It's great you've all found the time today. Now, on this general situation, I always wanted to see what's happening, what the security situation is on the ground, and also what the general conditions are for our colleagues in the area. Because we work there, we have a power plant footprint, but also industrial installations. So with that in mind, it is important to understand what's happening. Our field service people who work in the region are the people that we wanted to talk to. And I must say, I take great pride in how our team has resolved the situation there, or is dealing with it. Now, at the same time, we need to keep people safe, quite literally. So therefore, we need to take precautions in a situation that has been unusual for all of us. It's things like protecting them from flying debris. So if anything happens, they have to be safe on the construction side. All the way to the fact that the power installations, power plants need to keep operating. And this is what everyone has appreciated. Our customers have appreciated as well. But be it as it may, let me say once again, this is a challenging situation, not only for our employees, for all people living in the area. As I myself, was in a hotel, I get a mobile phone notification to proceed to a safe location. Well, that was an unusual situation, but I found that the way that people deal with the situation, manage the situation, is laudable. But again, it's not something we would wish for. No one would wish for. What is fantastic, I must say, is our team has kept operations going, and that was really remarkable. Well, thank you very much. Let's start with our QA. Christoph Willmeyer from DPA has the first question. Please, you have the floor. Good morning. Can I follow up to what you just said, your trip to the Middle East? Can you say a word or two about the impact on Siemens Energy's business? So, in the sense that high commodity risks will have a negative impact on your business, and is there any equipment or established fleet in the region affected by attacks in the region, so military attacks? And second question about Gamesa. So not yet broken even yet. Is it going to happen to break even in the third or the fourth quarter? What do you think? Okay, thank you very much. Let me talk about the Middle East once again. If you look at the financial indicators, the impact is almost negligible. So what we do see is higher transportation costs. We have higher transaction costs partly, but again, this is nothing that's significant at all. So in financial terms, no. And when it comes to orders, in the past quarter, we had an order intake in several countries from that region, Oman, the Emirates, Saudi Arabia as well. So with that in mind, the business continues. There are some projects, you have seen that with transformation of industry in the oil and gas sector, that have just shifted sideways just because of the situation. But again, I see discussions are ongoing. In other words, I do not believe that the order intake will change in the medium term. However, we have seen that in those countries, there has been a short-term focus on keeping things going, keeping operations going, that is. And as far as we are concerned, our equipment, our installations have not been affected. We had one installation where we had falling debris. Anti-drone defense has worked really well, but still, the debris will need to fall down somewhere. It was nearby our installations, but nothing has been damaged. So what we do see, however, is that in some places we have increased demand now because other infrastructure elements are now needed. Now in Saudi Arabia, there's a new pipeline that they operated to the Red Sea, towards the Red Sea to export oil from there. And we are involved in that as well. So with that in mind, so far, so good. In terms of Gamesa, we have always said that in the second half of the year, or towards the end of the second half of the year, that will be visible. So I don't think then we're across the finish line in Q3, so we need Q4 as well for that. Thank you very much. Next question from Christoph Schleitz, Reuters. Mr. Schleitz. Good morning. A couple of questions. First one on the U.S. tariffs and paying back or claiming back U.S. tariffs. Mr. Bruch, do you claim those tariffs back? Because in the past fiscal year, you paid about 200 million in tariffs, or tariff damage, if you will. Do you claim them back from the U.S. government? And if so, have you done it already? And to what tune? And when would you expect a payback of those prepaid tariffs? So that would be the first question.
For Ferraro, one on the share buyback, which you are now accelerating. How about increasing the overall volume of the share buyback? Is that something that you're considering at the moment due to the financial performance of the company? And then an add-on question on, you're saying that the Middle East crisis doesn't really have an impact on you. Could we still get what oil price you're assuming in your models for the entire year? If you could give us an idea about that, that would be very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Seitz. I'll start with tariffs and then Maria will take over. Of course, we are looking at the situation because you need to see what's happening, and that's a normal process because there's one thing we need to bear in mind. none of those tariffs were paid for by our customers. So what that means is we're obliged to handle the situation properly. We need to see how this develops. And the amount that we've named or mentioned was a short-term bottom line effect. However, in our customer agreements, there are provisions on who's paying what. But with that in mind, yes, we are involved in this process right now, but we do not expect any major net effect on our bottom line, because many of those tariffs have either been passed on or were being clarified. So what that means, it's rather an administrative handling of the situation rather than any special effect.
Thank you. Hello, Christoph. Good morning. And thank you for your questions. Maybe starting with the first one on the share buyback. Yes, we are accelerating. And maybe just to put that into context, we had a very strong first half for free cash flow, with the first quarter being just shy of 3 billion and now 2 billion in our Q2. That, as you know, has contributed to the upgrade and increasing of our guidance to 8 billion. So as of last week, the end of last week, or currently we're about at a 1.8 billion in shares already purchased back. And hence why we said we would continue to purchase up to 1 billion of additional volume in this fiscal year. So essentially preponing, if you'd like, 1 billion from next year, because if you recall, we indicated approximately a 2 billion per annum buyback volume estimated. So at this point in time, we're going to continue to purchase as indicated, and stay tuned for if there's going to be a change in the capital allocation. That's not contemplated at this point. We're still sticking with the 6 billion, up until 2028. And step by step, let's do this additional billion this year. So with respect to the oil price, yes, of course, we're watching this. And even at around $105 US per barrel, this is not, especially in our business, we're not looking at this from a short-term perspective. Our business is very long-term in nature, as you know, and in the models, they account for some of that fluctuation or that, let's say, volatility. So at this point in time, we don't see this as a major effect. Of course, we're watching it closely. Should it go above 120, 130, 150, etc., then that would be something different. Actually, just to maybe put this into perspective, in certain parts of the world where, let's say, increasing oil and gas prices are even more acutely felt, we're seeing that customers are continuing to want to buy and to proceed with, business as usual per se. So just to put that into perspective. Thank you for the questions.
Danke noch einmal hier.
Thank you very much. Let me remember, hit star and one if you want to ask a question. There's one question from the chat for you, Mr. Bruch, from Sergio Vaniga from LA Economist in Spain.
Question about Gamesa. What has been Siemens Energy's reaction to the proposal by José Endracanales, the CEO of Acciona and the main shareholder of Nordex, regarding the idea of creating a European leader in wind turbines?
Deutsch, English, Spanish. Was antworte ich jetzt?
German, English, or Spanish? English, okay.
Thank you for the question. No, I said, I'm not commenting on speculations in the market. This discussion around consolidation in the wind industry is on for a long time, and that is not just a European question. I think it's a Western question, which will continue to stay around, but this is just speculations, nothing to comment about it.
Okay, that was short and decisive. Dann kommt die nächste.
Next question from Axel Heppner from Handelsblatt. Good morning, Mr. Heppner. Good morning. 2 questions. Data center order intake. How high is the share here? And the second question is, what is the current state of play with regards to the turbines which have been reserved in Germany and what's going to happen in the future? Good morning, Mr. Heppner. Data centers, when you talk about the gas turbines, it's approximately a share of 25% with regards to the order intake in general. Within the 20-25% level, we try to keep the situation as it is on a long-term basis. This also means that the large amount of the capacity utilization of the plants depends on the entire electricity development, conventional electrification. With regard to the grid plants, transformers, it's below 10%. In the overall year, 2 billion euros in general were used for data centers within the entire grid book. We try to find the right balance because we want to have a portfolio which is as diverse as possible with regards to the order intake. Gas power plants, we still have long-term plans. Everything has been reserved so far, and we try to get into the discussions with the operators. We want to have a veritable share of these capacities for which we want to have a public tender, and we are discussing this in close cooperation with our customers. I do hope that in the second half of the year, at least with regards to the governments, we will be able to cross the finish line. But with regards to the order intake 27, this will be of utmost significance, but our plans are still very solid. Thank you very much. There is one question that you already answered. We have another question from José Ruiz.
What is the percentage of new orders coming from data centers? You answered the question. Second question is, can you quantify the evolution of pricing in the gas services division? And are you seeing cross-selling opportunities between gas services and grid technologies?
Ja, zu den Preisen muss ich sagen.
Onto the prices. Oh, no, English.
Yeah, sorry. Apologies. With regard to the pricing, we publish once a year, every quarter, for our pricing development in the different segments, and then new units, particular, which is relevant for gas services. And this used to be, for example, in the, let's say, fiscal year 25, which was last year, around 500 basis points, on the back of prior price increases. What we are saying for 2026, it has been substantial price increases since then, but you will only see a quantification then with the quarter four. We do it obviously not quarter by quarter because it could be confusing because it is volatile, and at the end, it's important to see it overarchingly on a full year. And in the quarter four, you will see the details on it. On the cross-selling opportunities, absolutely. I mean, that is an opportunity. That is, by the way, not only related to data centers, that is really across the board, and that is not just between gas and grid technologies. We, in the last quarter, had one project where we combined wind and grid. Also, that is an opportunity, particularly if it comes to offshore wind. And these are things which we obviously try to leverage.
Next question from Clara Thier from Wirtschaftswoche. Good morning, Mrs. Thier. Your question, please. Good morning. I have two questions. First of all, concerning transformation of industry. There are wonderful figures that we've presented, but there is one particular area where the orders have declined significantly or slightly due to the hesitation of the customers due to the situation in the Middle East. Is this a behavior which is limited in time, or is it more a structural problem? Because there are sometimes difficulties with this section and transformation of industry. Second question. During the AGM, you announced that with regards to the Mozambique LNG, you would provide us with additional information, or that you would rather try to get additional information. Have you done so? And if so, what's your conclusion? Order intake at TI. This is of a limited in nature. We think that things will change rather quickly, and we also think that this will be the case with a view to the future. New developments were set in, but basically saying transformation of industry rather has conventional process industry customers, chemical, gas, and other process-based industrial operations. Here the momentum is different compared to the conventional electrification business. So here the situation is a bit more balanced, but we are confident that we will have a healthy book-to-bill order intake with regards to the revenue situation, also with review to the future. And the postponed order intake will be realized in the near future. With regards to Mozambique, we are still in close contact with Totalis. No deliveries have taken place so far. If I remember correctly, now I have to look over to my colleague, he gives me a nod. But we are still in the middle of discussions, and we are trying to review the framework conditions, so that I cannot provide you with any news compared to the situation back at the AGM. Thank you. There are two more questions. This is your last chance. If you want to ask a question, hit *1 or use the chat. One question in the chat comes from Michael Junwen from Energy Watch in Denmark. The first question was already answered by you, Mr. Boch.
To reach break-even for Siemens Gamesa, you answered that. But the second question is, what will be the main drivers to reach break-even?
Ja, wir hatten ja so ein paar Elemente gezeigt immer.
We've presented.
We showed a couple of elements during our Capital Market Day, and obviously it is between improving the service profitability, making sure that the quality costs get under control in the onshore, increasing productivity on the offshore factory side, and the fourth element was general cost reduction in the corporate structures. And also, I mean, if you recall, we indicated when we did the takeover of the minorities in Siemens Gamesa, we also indicated that we believe in synergies of around 300 million euros, which are well on track, I have to say, in terms of being realized. We are working on all ends. The situation throughout the year, and I said it before, is a bit more challenging because the order intake is slightly lower than we expected in wind. And this is why we obviously have to continue to work on the cost mitigation. And this is what we're doing and what the team is doing in light of this. But these are more or less the four levers what we pull to achieve the break even. And the team is doing an excellent job, I have to say.
Thanks.
The next question via telephone, Marilyn Martin from Bloomberg. Hello, Mrs. Martin. Thank you so much. I have a question concerning the situation that you do not want to focus on data centers only. What's your customer base with regards to data centers? Are these individual key accounts? And what is their regional dissemination? You also mentioned Poland in the press release. What's the demand there? Is it limited in time or is it a long-term demand? With regards to the data centers, you can see that quite obviously, and that's very interesting because we have different customer groups. On the one hand, we've got the conventional project developers that establish the data centers and make them available. Then you've got the tech companies which are involved directly in business operations. And then, of course, you also have customers who are gas suppliers and try to turn it into electricity in order to reach an arbitrage. So it's a rather broad base of customers, different customers, who all pursue their own interests, of course. What was the second question again? Poland. Oh, yes. Poland developed in a very positive way. We were quite successful there as well. And that is something that we consider to be a region which is of strategic significance for us in Europe, not only with a view to gas, and that's what you refer to, but also with regards to wind. In the offshore wind sector, we received a lot of important orders, and of course we're catching with grid as well, so Poland continues to be in our focus. Thank you very much. The next question comes from the chat from Angela Meyer. She works for the Börsenzeitung. Transformation of industry does not grow that strongly than gas turbines and grid, and the number of orders have declined. For the four different sectors, transformation of industries, could you explain to us what the market developments will be and how the four sectors are doing in the market? Well, hello, Mrs. Meyer. I wouldn't say that orders have declined, but it's an industrial business operation, you see. It is not so much volatile as it used to be in the field of electricity in the past, but this book-to-bill of 2.5 or so can never be reached. And of course, it also has become very obvious that industries such as chemicals are characterized by a great deal of reluctance. But I do hope, and I'm confident, that we have a stable outlook of a healthy book-to-bill, which means 1 and above. Now let us zoom in on the four different sectors or areas. Compression and steam. Good developments can be projected also with regard to compression, and oil and gas will also help us make additional investments into the infrastructure. Here, the high oil price is of help to us, to say it honestly. With regards to steam, we have reached a high level of profitability. I'm also confident with the number of incoming orders because new applications will be used. First, data centers will also use turbines. But it's a very good market with a view to the future, so we think there are new growth opportunities. LNG is a very broad area from Navy, electrification of different plants. It's an area which in the medium run will continue to grow in double-digit numbers. That's what we said on the occasion of the capital market. But, it changes from quarter to quarter because it's a rather small segment. But in general terms, I'm very positive. What is weak is SES. These are the electrolyzers. The factory is working hard on that, and there are still some projects which are about to be executed, but we are a far cry from the speculations or expectations that existed with regards to hydrogen. And this will not change in the near future. There will be projects here and there, and we will stick to the technology, but it's not really yet a commercial market. Let me just add to that, but I remember that 5 years ago, you said that up until the end of the decade, it will not be a commercial market. So therefore, your intention was right. Yes, but doesn't help. It's a pity, being on the right side doesn't really help you. Okay, point taken. Next question from the tech comes from Philip Akutu from Energies. Delivery times for gas turbines, how have they developed? How long do customers have to wait on average when they place an order? In 25, you spoke about 4 years for gas turbines. Well, I'd like to set the stage for you. I would like to repeat this once again. Yes, this is the delivery time that still applies, but we try to become more flexible, whether we shift things back and forth, where there is a demand for smaller turbines that we try to cover in greater numbers because they can be delivered much quicker, but the utilization rate is still the same. But let me explain to you that every year, with regards to gas turbines and also grid technology, which means transformers and switch units, we try to increase our capacity. So therefore, it is to be expected that in the course of the next few years, the situation will get better. With a view to the big transformers, we have reached delivery times of 3 to 4 years. But last week, I think it was last week, we had a groundbreaking ceremony for 3 new groundbreaking ceremonies for 3 more plants. So we are running at full speed, and we're trying to increase our capacities year by year. It will take some time before we get into the right situation, but I think in the next few years to come, we will be able to generate healthy growth and get back to normal with regards to the delivery times before the end of the decade.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. I go back to the chat window. Michael Dulund, something that we heard before from Energy Watch. He has a question on Siemens Gamesa.
Orders are lower than expected in offshore wind, and what are your expectations in the offshore business for the rest of the year? And he also asks, are you concerned that your growth in orders are so much lower than investors, and why is it so? I mean, this is probably to the quality issues, but over to you.
Yeah, this is only related to offshore. No, first of all, what you have seen, offshore is always a bumpy business because an order is in the billion or billions, and then obviously it is volatile, and you always have seen that. And 27, we always expected as a low. There were some orders which we expected to land. 26 we have always expected as a low, and then we said more will come in 27. We have on top of that seen some of the orders shifting from 26 to 27. This is also what we see, for example, in Asia happening. If you relate to comparison, I'm not commenting on competitors, but obviously this is heavily impacted by the auction round 7, where some specialities were in terms of the prior agreements. No, I don't see that as a concern. I see it obviously that if you take, let's say, the current European suppliers in offshore, we can serve the total market. I think that is an important message to the customers. But I obviously confident that we are able to secure enough orders going forward. But Where I'm concerned is that obviously projects which are planned are not getting to FID fast enough. And that is mainly also related, keep in mind, the interest rates have gone up substantially. And all the projects face now challenges, which have been auctioned like years ago at a lower interest rate to face now higher interest rate, and with this less profitability. And this is where I think the policymakers need to think through of what can they do as boundary conditions to ease investment decisions in companies who are investing into offshore wind parks. So we are trying to explain to governments that's really needed, because we do need offshore wind, particularly in Europe.
Yeah, I have to correct myself a little bit. Those were two different questions, so I put them all together. But the question regarding investors and are we concerned growth in order intake was not related to offshore. So it's a general question.
No, I mean, obviously Vestas is larger than us in wind, and obviously we pursue a different strategy, particularly on onshore. Onshore is for me about de-risking profitability of service business, and then let's see where we take it from there. Obviously this was on the back of fixing the quality matters, and this is what we're working through. No, I'm not concerned, and we see substantial interest also now with bringing the onshore products back into the market from the customer side. So in that regard, I'm not concerned.
There's another question from an journalist, Togi Thomas. He asked whether there is any chance that Siemens Gamesa will demerge as the business is putting down the improvement of GT and GS.
There's no plans at the moment.
Okay. Die nächste Frage.
Next question is again from Christoph Schleitz from Reuters. Please. I'd like to know once again, because you said before that tariffs is not going to have a major net effect. But can you still contextualize? What are we talking about? Is it double-digit millions that you want to claim back? I mean, could you just say a few more things on that? Thank you. Well, we said before that we paid a lower triple figure amount in millions. So 200 million was what we talked about before. And now everything is under review and under discussion. And what we don't know at this point is which of the funds are allocated to what segment, what could be refunded, what could not be refunded, because the process is not as banal as it sounds. So there have been different tariff regimes, tariff numbers or codes. So I would be cautious to say that, look, this is the amount that we expect. So therefore we are saying everything, and everything we're saying, in fact, of our annual guidance, etc., is not based on our belief that we will get something back. If something comes back, well, fair enough, and that's good. But it's no specific plan. And it could actually go forward until quite a while, until this is all processed. But we had some outflows, and therefore we've referred to the lower triple-digit million range. And then we have to see whether all of this is eligible, if you can say it like that, or not. So we're right in that process. What we did do is you need to register first. So if you have an interest in clarifying that, and that's what we did. Excellent. Now, currently there are no further questions. So with that, let's end our Q&A for the day. Thank you so much for attending, for your kind interest and the many questions. If you do have more questions, the press team and myself personally will be available. The analyst call will start at 10:30 with CEO Christian Bruch and CFO Maria Ferraro. You can dial in as well. However, you cannot ask questions anymore. You'll find that link on our website. The next regular journalist Q&A will be on the 5th of August, which will be the third quarter press call, also with Christian Bruch again. So with that, have a great day. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.